Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer for this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. And we are going to dive into your weekly forecast for this week of December 18th through the 23rd. Before I get into this, I just want to say you have until two two things. You have until the 20th if you are a Sagittarius to book a reading with me. Um, that reading would have to be after the new year because I'm all filled up, but as long as you book by the 20th, you can get your birthday special. And then the second thing I want to say is you have until the 24th of December, so roughly about a week, to book the Christmas special, which is 3 readings with me for only $155. These are an hour and a half long sessions that will meet over Zoom that you can use over 18 months. You can use this to look at your transits. You could use this to gift to another person if you want them to have a reading. You could use this if you are wanting to study evolutionary astrology and you want to understand it more in depth. You could use it as a tutoring session. It's really however you want to utilize those 3 sessions, which is a $145 discount for that package of 3. And that is my gift to you all for Christmas. So again, you have until December 24th to book that if you haven't yet and you're interested in it. So without further ado, let's get into this week's astrology. We have some really interesting dynamics playing out. So for this, I'm going to share the first chart with you all and point this out. So on December 18th, we have the Sun in Sagittarius square to Neptune and Pisces. The Sun's ruler is Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. And I want you to look at this because it is conjunct the North Node of Uranus, which is retrograde. And this is pulling in this Mercury and Sag. So let's dive in. With this Sun square to Neptune, it's in what we call a first quarter square, meaning that there's action that is meant to be made. The Sun is the ruler of this Mars retrograde as well, which is important for us to think about. And of course, you see that the Moon is conjunct this Mars. So let me kind of dive into this for you all. All right. So as we know, Mars retrograde is where I'm going to start here with this chart because it's going to tell a more complete story about the Sun squaring that Neptune. Mars in Leo retrograde is where we are having these soul desires that are coming up around how we should be actualizing something. If you think about the Sun in your own natal chart, which is ruling this Mars that's transiting through the sign of Leo, a really great way to think about the Sun is that it is a filter for your whole chart. It's where you're filtering in the purpose of your chart. Whatever dynamics that you go through, the trials and tribulations of life, that Sun is the filter that everything gets funneled into to give it purpose and to give it meaning. And so I've used my own example before. Mars and Leo right now is transiting my 4th house. So a lot of emotional dynamics around my own Leonian self-love or the need to feel seen or understood. It could be with family, whoever that I might have over-identified with is coming up for grabs for me right now. Mars is like a trigger. that's helping us to act on the soul's desires as it's transiting our own natal chart. And then it's pulling in my own sun, which is in Capricorn in the ninth house. And so every experience that I'm going through right now is being filtered through that sun. So there's these Mars triggers that's evoking, you know, whether or not I feel seen or what it is that I want to actualize for myself dealing with emotional content. And that sun in my chart in the sign of Capricorn in the ninth house is the bottom line purpose, and what it's giving definition around is being my own authority and being authentic. Okay. So you can look at this Mars transit in tandem with your own sun sign to really give more context to this. So Mars retrograde in Leo is where we're re-experiencing these dynamics of a Leonian nature of how are you going to show up in the world in self-love? What brings you joy? What is the catalyst for your joy? Are you being able to inwardly validate yourself and not have to have acknowledgement? And then with the sun in Sagittarius through transit ruling this Mars, it's speaking to one's own authenticity and beliefs and truths where one is needing to improve upon this. And then that sun, which is in a first quarter square to Neptune, is about the need to act on healing these dynamics around, can you authentically love yourself? Do you know who you are? Are you showing up in the world? Where do you need to improve upon what you're giving meaning to? Are there these Neptunian kind of idealizations around how something's supposed to look, and is Mars activating that as a trigger for you? What's going on? You know, even posing a Sagittarian kind of question around this to bring this content up further. And then with the sun being ruled by Jupiter, retrograde in the sign of Gemini, it's really helping us to, especially with the north node of Uranus conjunct that Jupiter, it's helping us to objectify these dynamics of the intake of information, the content we've taken in, what's been learned, Gemini, the messages we've received that might be impeding upon our own healing or that have taught us about the ideals in our lives. Like this is the ideal situation, or this is the ideal relationship, or the list goes on. And so it's having us to objectify it in order to declutter, in order to move in actual truths, right? Versus untruths. And again, that north node of Uranus and Jupiter are both ruled by Mercury and Sag. So it's really leaning into your own intuition and discovering more about yourself in an authentic way, right? So as we have these Martian triggers, these trigger points around I don't feel heard or understood or acknowledged. It's really looking at what is the truth in context to this, and are we having ideals around this? What's coming up for you? And where can you self-improve and where can you heal your own beliefs, uh, or where you might be giving too much meaning to something outside of yourself, especially with Mars and Leo, that can be, I want someone to validate me and my experience. And really, the hero's journey with this is to be able to inwardly validate yourself and not need that. So one can feel more secure within. Okay. And then the other dynamic I want to speak to is Venus is conjunct Cassandra, both in the sign of Aquarius and both ruled by that Uranus and Taurus retrograde. So this can be where we are definitely needing to have conversations with others, and there can be an immense amount of fear stemming from different traumatic instances of speaking up or being one's own unique individual person in the past. And we're wanting to kind of hide or maybe not have the needed conversations. And with Cassandra conjunct Venus, it's also pulling in Mercury because it's in a sextile to Mercury. So there's a need to express oneself authentically, and then to have the, Mercury is trining Mars, to have the Leonian courage, to be in dignity and self-love, to just speak and say what it is one needs to say in an authentic and honest way. And really, that can help us to not over-identify with the past by just creating that action. Things from the past can surface around our own self-esteem, Uranus and Taurus, whenever we use our voice. And the dynamic is to just rest in knowing that as long as you're sincere and authentic, that's really what matters. That actually is what is nurturing to one's self-esteem and inner relationship to self. All right. And that is this kind of double signature with the north node of Uranus also conjunct Jupiter, and Jupiter is ruled by that Mercury and Sag, is just this condensed energy around the need to say what it is one needs to say and to just show up as yourself, as your own unique individual self. And if someone wants to discourage that or someone doesn't want to see that or honor that, then that actually gives you a Gemini choice, right? It has this dual nature of, well, what choice do you want to make now? And that's also seen with Venus trine to Jupiter. It can really magnify where there needs to be a choice made in order to liberate from where we've over-identified with some type of relational dynamic that we might have had an ideal around, or where we might have been overcompensating who we were, or having this feeling of, well, I've been walking in the world this way, but behind closed doors, I feel very, very different. And so the call is to just express oneself in a natural, authentic way. And that trine from Venus and Cassandra to Jupiter is really helping us to give the message, to speak in that way, and then to rest in knowing that there is this naturally occurring law of unity and diversity. That even if maybe someone doesn't understand that, it's more fortifying of your inner relationship and healing of one's own self-esteem whenever we show up authentically and in our own integrity and your own value. So it's on the one hand helping you liberate from where maybe you over-identified with the values of others, seeing as Venus is the ruler of that South Node in Libra. And now just having this kind of Leonian courage to say and express oneself in a unique and authentic way. Yeah, it's like showing up in the world in that way that is, I don't want to say fearless, because Aquarius can evoke prior memories of traumatizing experiences that have really been a catalyst to possibly harm our inner self-esteem or our self-worth. And this is about recovering that. That Uranus is retrograde. So it's having us recover this sense of our own individuality through just being authentic. So then that's really interesting because on the 20th, Ceres is going to be opposite Mars in Leo, and Mars is ruled by the sun, which will be at 29 degrees, Sagittarius. And of course, that Ceres is ruled by that Uranus retrograde in the sign of Taurus, and it's pulling in Venus as well. So Ceres opposing Mars can be where we have this trigger moment of where we're remembering where we lost something, whether it be community of some sort, or even possibly our where we over-identified with someone else's perception of who we are. And so there's this need to recover that through integrating more self-love, and liberating from the over-identification of others' perceptions or viewpoints of us. And then that 29-degree sun and Sag is really where we're giving purpose to this. Like, again, it's this repeating signature of showing up for who you are and whatever that looks like, whatever feels authentic. And so it can be an immense amount of pressure at that 29-degree mark for one to do so. So there could be this trigger moment with that Mars opposing Ceres where it's bringing up all of this content of loss. And really, it's about nurturing one's inner community through self-love and individuation of an authentic nature, and to also really liberate from the messages or where we've over-identified with the perceptions of others. So it's this recovery of one's own individuality and authenticity. This is kind of a theme of this week. And then on the 21st, the sun is going to enter Capricorn. And the moon is going to square Jupiter on this day. It's going to be in Virgo, squaring Jupiter, and it's going to be opposing Saturn in Pisces. And so this is interesting because Saturn in Pisces is the ruler of this sun now. And Mars is ruled by the sun in Capricorn now. So a sun in Capricorn is where we're giving purpose through structural form, or meaning that this is what I'm putting in place. And with Saturn and Pisces, because I see the vision of this is where I want to go in life. This is how I want to structure my life. This is how I want to show up as an authority in my own life. And with the moon in Virgo opposing Saturn and Pisces, this can be where we're needing to throw off and oppose these self-limiting beliefs, the moon squaring Jupiter, and to really improve upon my own inner emotional dynamics so that way I can integrate Saturn and Pisces, this healing quality of how I can discern and show up in the world as my own authority. I can ask and answer my own questions. I can follow my own path. And part of this is this healing quality that is also helping in this culmination of the restructuring of one's consciousness right now that has been going on since Saturn and entered Pisces. And it's also, so it's dissolving these old boundaries that are saying like, no, you're not your own authority. You need to give your authority away. Or it's also about healing the conditioning, how you grew up. Were you conditioned? Did you learn that you have to go to someone else to get your answers, your questions answered? Are you able to self-reflect and to take Capricornian wisdom and apply that into structural form now? This is where it's also wanting us to expand upon what is known on a intuitive sense, and then to improve upon that, through when we create action to put this out and we show up in the world as our own authority in an authentic way, that promotes healing and a restructuring of one's consciousness. And then it helps expand upon our own inner learning of oneself, which also permits Piscean healing, but also it permits being able to do Virgo, taking things step by step, learning as we go, cultivating more wisdom through the inner gnosis of creating the action that gives us this necessary feedback so that we can continue to improve upon ourselves. And it's about having this direct experience with this thing that we call life, right? And then on the 23rd, the sun in Capricorn is going to be squaring the nodes, and Saturn is going to square the north node of Uranus and Gemini. And this is definitely interesting. So that sun, let's do this. I want to show this. That sun in Capricorn square the nodes is really an interesting dynamic. This isn't a skipped step, or this isn't something that says that this is a skip step. What it's saying is there needs to be a direct experience of integrating the past and the present moment in order to propel and move forwards, that north node. So you're going to be pulling in Venus in Aquarius and Mars in Leo retrograde into this dynamic, and also Saturn in Pisces. So, and then remembering that the ruler of the sun, Saturn, is square the north node of Uranus. So this is having us reflect on the past of where extremes have played out and the need to dissolve Saturn and Pisces, these old constructs, and then the need to act on liberating ourselves from what has been learned, especially if it's around judgment or guilt that has perpetuated imbalances. And as we do so, we're integrating this dynamic of self-love and perpetuating new patterns of awareness in our life by choosing to act on self-love, right? And that is truly being one's own authority. And then it's also speaking to there's help, from source with this path of clearing out the past in order to move towards the future. And it's about staying present and grounded and doing what's right in front of you as a way to create a new foundation worth standing upon, right? That way it also harmonizes with life when one's their own authority. There's something, especially again, very healing about this. This is also where you could have these ideas around and visions around what you want the future to look like, but the need to continue to improve upon your sense of authority or your sense of sovereignty by reflecting on the past in order to liberate from those dynamics and to change one's inner relationship to self further. And then this need to really objectify, what have you taken in? What are the messages that you've been taking in? Does something feel authentic, or is something having you accrue judgment or guilt, or a sense of futility? It's really where we're called to improve upon these notions in order to move forwards in self-love. It's also where we are called to act on what feels and brings joy in our life when we're sitting in our own sovereignty, when we're following our own path, and we are relieving ourselves from the expectations of others whenever we are meeting ourselves right where we're at and following our own drumbeat instead of what has been conditioned. So this is a lot of what's coming up this week. And I will be making another video later this week where I will do a deeper conversation over one of these astrological conversations to go more in depth into it. But I did want to give an overview of these energies. So much of this is about like just being in your own lane. It's about experiencing the freedom to be who you are and how that is really healing, and how when we do that, it eliminates having to follow the learned rules of the expectations of others. It's about being able to control yourself, right? This is the only thing that I can control. I can't control others' perceptions of me. I can't control what other people think of me. I'm not going to internalize this anymore. I'm going to be my own authority, and I'm going to stay in my own lane, and I'm just going to show up in the world authentically as myself. And I know that that's good enough, that there is a beauty and a dignity, Mars and Leo, within this. There's something very dignified about that. That's also very authentic, and it also mirrors to other people what a Capricornian natural role model can look like, which we're definitely needing that in the world right now. So, like I said, I will make another video this week, and stay in your lane. Watch yourself blossom. Create new ground for you to stand on that's rooted in your own autonomy and own authority, that feels authentic, that feels like you're in self-dignity and self-respect and your own integrity. Things around that can come up this week, but there's a lot of beautiful energies that speaks to having a voice, recovering your voice, speaking it, and actually it being something that helps others not feel so alone. And so if you find yourself in certain situations, just speaking from the heart is the best way to go. And to remember to not react, but to respond. Because when we respond in a way that is responsible, in case something comes up or a trigger moment is had, people are able to hear a lot better whenever we're not reactive. Um, and also, there could be, you never know who's around, who's observing this dynamic go on. And you could be mirroring what being a natural role model is. And so I want you to remember that there's a lot of healing that could go down this week around saying what it is that one needs to say and to just be authentic and in their own unique individuality. And that there's nothing better than that, right? Despite what other people could project onto it. There's something that feels really good when you're able to validate that within yourself, and it eliminates this guilt or shame around what are people going to think? How are they going to perceive me? As long as you are being sincere and authentic and speaking from the heart, you absolutely cannot go wrong. So, I will see you guys later this week. I am looking forward to connecting with more of you soon, and yeah, have a great week.